Welcome to the Hennessy's House with me, your host, Nicole Hennessy. Today we're going to talk with Aly Pain, a relationship specialist who has built her career and was inspired to do so based on her own dysfunctional relationships growing up. She's now been married for 23 years and has two teen boys of her own. Today we're going to talk in so much depth that it's a three-part episode. Part one, we're going to talk all about our current times that we're living in and how anxiety and stress is high within our households and how to be there for each other and take time for ourselves. The second part of this series is going to be all about setting boundaries. What do boundaries look like? How do I develop healthy boundaries? And how do I communicate those boundaries to the people around me? Part three is going to be about co-parenting. This could be married or divorced, or living with someone you're not married to. We're just going to dig into when two people are raising children together and your views on how you parent are differently, how to find the middle ground, and how to communicate better.
Aly, I am so glad that you are here with me today to discuss this very serious topic with our current circumstances. I just want to dive right in and ask you, with the way life has been for so many right now, job loss, working from home, kids are online for school, relationships are struggling and the stresses are high. So
They are.
how can we turn this potentially damaged relationship into a better one because of this opportunity that COVID has given us?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, I think just framing opportunity, right, is that it's extremely stressful when families are spending 24/7 together. And I mean, let's just call it what it is, right? We were all fine and well when we spent 6 hours a day together, maybe four, but 24? Are you freaking kidding me? And so it's pushing everybody's buttons, and things in relationship that we could they were kind of like speed bumps. We could tolerate them. We could kind of sweep it under the rug. We can't do that anymore because they're like so all up in our grill that it's unavoidable. And it has, I think, everybody feeling like they're a little bit raw and on edge. And just acknowledging that is the first step. Like, look, I'm tired. All these extra roles are on my plate. Everyone being in my space all the time. I don't have any of this like quiet kind of alone space, or not as much. I'm raw and I'm tired. And just saying that is like, just a big exhale. Like, okay, I can deal with that. I can be more compassionate with myself when I honor and just say what's true for me. And the moment I'm more compassionate with myself, that's the moment I can be more compassionate with other people. Because maybe my teens are in that same position. This is not the social life that they had planned for 2020. This is not the graduation year they had planned. This is not their junior year they had planned. This is not the sport career, blah, 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 right? Like all these things. And when I can honor and acknowledge my own sense of anger and sadness about the way it is right now, then I can find that place of compassion for my teen. So, and my spouse, if that is the case. So I think that's a big start to it, is that we have to name what's true, because it helps us exhale and back down a little, as opposed to going on the offensive and coming out against other people or on other people and wanting them to do the changing, which is real and true.
Right.
It's not as constructive as if I take a breath and back down for a minute and find out what's going on for me.
Absolutely. I think that we're all dealing with that on some level right now. And that's such a powerful statement of kind of looking at it from our own perspective. What can we do differently? How do we need to look at how we're handling things versus this teenager of mine really needs to do this better, or my husband needs to step up and do more of this, whatever those circumstances are. If we take a minute to look at it from our perspective and say, here's how I'm feeling, I can only control me in all of this. So how am I going to take that time that I need for myself to reset? How am I going to communicate with my children and my husband on what I'm feeling I need from them in a respectful way instead of it being an attacking way,
Yes.
right?
Right. Which when we're angry and stressed is more normal, that we come out in an attacking way, to your point. I think it's so critical that we give ourselves permission to be kind to ourselves in this crazy time that nobody in has ever been in, so that we can be kind with others. And to your point, this is so critical. We give ourselves permission to ask for what we need. Ask for what we need. I need, maybe if you have younger kids right now and you say to your spouse, I literally need to go and sit on the floor in the bathroom for 15 minutes. Please keep the children out. I will be locking the door. There's another toilet in the house you can use. I need 15 minutes alone in the bathroom. Just like, I just need to sit there. Ask for it. There's nothing too crazy to ask for right now to help our mental health. And the more that you're willing to ask for what you need and other people can get behind that, the more you are giving them permission, your teenagers, to ask for what they need. And here's where it gets tough. An adult in this situation, this whole pandemic, like you and I have a sense of, um, we have more life experience. We can project out and go, okay, well, this isn't going to last forever. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of sucks right now, but teenagers don't have that. And I'm not saying they're not intelligent. 9 months is like a huge chunk of their lives. And so what you need as an adult to keep yourself in the calmest and healthiest place possible is going to look very different from what your teenager needs. And it's easy as an adult, because I see this going on everywhere, for adults to say, but they're spending so much time in technology. They're spending so much time and they should get off. It's not healthy. Well, look, is it as balanced as it was prior to the pandemic? No. And is it the thing that has them feel connected to their social world, but they don't have personal access to? Yes.
Yeah.
So is it, quote, out of balance? A bit, but getting down on your children for using a device that PS we as adults invented and PS we as adults gave to them, and that is now the way the world connects at that particular age group, getting down on them for that is like shaming and asking them to be something they're not, grow up in a way that they didn't, and ignore that it's a pandemic.
Yeah.
So I think we need to step back a little.
I agree. And, I do think to that same point, if you're really worried about the amount of time your kids are laying in their bed on electronics, then it's our job to figure that out. How are we as the parents going to help break that, right? Like give them some space from the electronics. It could be as simple as, hey, why don't we cook dinner tonight together? I'm going to place a grocery order, look up recipes. What would be fun for you to make? Let's do it together, or go for a walk together, or, just have this thing you have a common interest in and do that together. It could be a board game, dinner, whatever.
Yes, yeah, and I totally agree. We had a game night at our house 2 nights ago, and we actually did it in between dinner, and my son was playing in a gaming tournament with some friends at 9 o'clock. So instead of saying, oh, well, that's it, we can't do it, we thought, no, we have an hour and 35 minutes and we are going to sit down and fill that space with gaming time, not something else. Board gaming, board gaming time. And I think, Nicole, this is really powerful, because there's a lot of parents that are like, I don't think you're hearing me. I'm at my max.
Yeah.
I am maxed out. I get you're asking me to beat the Pinterest and Instagram family who cooks dinner together and does crafts, and I'm not that person.
Yeah.
And I just want to say right now, for those parents that are listening, that both you and I think I can wholeheartedly say, do not have that expectation of anyone. We are
No.
simply attempting to create suggestion. And I'll go back to the very first point that we made, is that asking for what we need, which sometimes is more downtime than together time, and creating some space so that we can spend a little bit more time together in a different way is important. But there's a hell no to trying to be your Pinterest, Instagram. You look at, we did a photo
Absolutely not.
family. No.
Absolutely not. I completely agree with that. I mean, I run two businesses. I have three children and a
Yes.
grandson, and my husband's basically never home because of his work schedule. And there's no way I have time to even bother trying to be a Pinterest mom. I pick a corner of my house to clean, and I'm like, that's the corner I'm going to stare at today, because it's the only sane one I have around my house today. But finding those little times for yourself, even like, this weekend I was burnt out. So I went and sat in my car and played music and was like, my kids are safe. I'm right here, but I need a minute.
Yes.
And that's the only place I could find to totally escape the house for a
Yes.
minute. And
Yes.
that's all I had. And that was fine. And if you don't have a car, take a hot shower. And if you have little kids and you are a single mom or dad, you wait till they go to sleep at night and you have that one space in your house that's set up like your little personal sanctuary that's peaceful for you, and you take time there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I love that you did that version of self-love and shared that's the honest version of that right now. And I also want to go back to your point though about spending time together, because this is a weird irony. It takes emotional energy to let's say plan or communicate with a teenager. Let's say I have a bit of a strained relationship and say, hey, come and let's cook dinner with me, and they're kind of like eye rolly and going, oh, really, do I have to? Like,
Oh yeah.
yes, you have to, right? That takes emotional energy to do that. I absolutely acknowledge that, and when you're feeling at your max, that feels like a lot. Here's the irony: in spending that time together, it often will release a whole bunch of positive energy, positive hormones like oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine in the brain. So, in doing it, which felt like a big energy suck in the beginning, it turns out to be this really positive experience where both you and your teenager are now feeling better and more fueled than you were in the beginning. So I acknowledge it feels like a little bit of an uphill in the beginning.
Yeah.
And because of the way our brains are wired for relationship, it will often have you feeling fuller than you did before by having played a game of cards, or even if you have a young child and a little card, go fish, or just something super, super light and simple. Don't take on the whole, let's teach them how to play Risk.
Yeah.
Like just dumb it down, play super simple. You could make mac and cheese together. It doesn't have to be a gourmet meal, right? But
Right.
yeah, spending time together is really, really important right now for our teens, especially. And as I've said in so many of my TikToks and other things, based on thousands of comments from teenagers, and you can probably attest to this, teenagers actually do want to spend time with you. They
Yeah.
actually do really want more of a relationship with you. They're lonely.
And that speaks to this interesting. I wanted to get your perspective on this anyway. We're living in this time that's so unknown to all of us. And with your expertise here, there are good things and bad things that will come out of it in generations that we'll see later, right? That we don't
Yes.
really know yet. And
Yes.
I've put a lot of thought into, I'm interested to know what that teen generation, especially, not the younger kids as much because they're so adaptive, but these teens whose social lives usually run their entire world.
Hmm.
And that looks so different for them right now. So, what
Hmm.
does that mean about their values, about family values, with the way we're living in this time? Because they're forced into an environment where the only people they have face to face to communicate with regularly are the people that usually at that age are your least favorite people to talk to, which are your parents.
So
And
well said.
right. And so it's so interesting. You have to be patient with that, but also it gives you this opportunity that a disaster has created for us to have a totally different relationship than most parents ever have had with a teenage child.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and we were talking about that at dinner the other night, saying, my husband and I were just saying, we're really grateful for this because we would have so many fewer family dinners because my youngest is very active in sports. And so we're constantly juggling dinner time with activities. And that's not happening right now. We're having these amazing conversations at dinner. So it really is, because our teenagers are struggling. Now I know that adults, it's very real that we are also struggling with
Yeah.
this current situation. Again, we have a context that our teenagers do not have. And so they are really struggling. And the opportunity to lean into, let them pick a movie. Let
Yeah.
them pick a movie and sit and watch that movie. And then after, you can say, so what did you love about that movie? Who is your favorite character? Why? Tell me, like, and we're getting into these conversations even at our dinner table that I just don't think we would have time for before. We're finding out, and then you pick a movie, and hopefully not one that's horrid for them to sit and watch. And, and even play video games. I'm not a video game gamer. I just never have been in my
Me
entire,
too.
I mean, come on, I
Me
grew
too.
up with Frogger. That's how old I am. But my kids have, a couple years ago, we bought them a PlayStation. And so, when I get on my break over Christmas in a couple days, I'm going to be sitting down playing some PlayStation with them. And yeah, they're going to be kind of annoyed, and they're going to have to show me what to do it. But there's an opportunity for me to step into their world, not because we're going to be BFFs, like, let's get over that fact, but
Right.
because I have an opportunity of time to get to know them in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's an opportunity I'm going to choose to take.
Absolutely. I'm definitely the type of personality that tries my hardest to always find those silver linings. And we just had that conversation in my house. My husband is a chef. So we all know
Wow.
how well that industry is going right now with COVID.
Right.
And his restaurant is once again closed, right?
Oh,
So it's
yes.
okay, no paychecks coming in, and we're all home. He's doing carry out a few days a week. So he's home, like normally works 13-hour days, 6 days a week. Now he's home all but 3 days a week. And that's fantastic. But he was so upset, right? Beating himself up about it, feeling like he's failing us as the provider or one of the providers in this house. And I just looked at him and I said, it is what it is. And this is out of our control. And fortunately, we're gonna be okay, right? We'll figure this out. But you need to look at this opportunity from the side of, wow, in my career and the kind of job I do, I never get the opportunity to spend that much time with my family. You really get to know your children right now. And that's just an opportunity that normally in, I don't know, our fun life that we used to have, that's currently not what we have. He just would never get that opportunity. And so it's right along with what you're saying there is, it's scary and it's hard and it sucks. And if you're dealing with job loss and financial
Yes.
stresses, that's
Huge.
such an added layer. And then, you've got a teenager that's staring out the window while washing dishes and just leaving the sink running. And you're like, water bill, right? Because you're trying to think about how you're going to pay it anyway. And they're just
So
wasting it.
true.
There's all these moments of like, why are all the freaking lights on? And, we're so quick to snap right now about anything that's stressing us out because of the adult part of
Mhm.
COVID, right? The adult
Yes.
scary part. It's our job to provide for these kids,
Right. Right.
right?
Yes. And here's I love that you brought this up, because so there was a message. That's not really a word. Our home also experienced and is experiencing the financial impact of COVID, both
Yeah.
my husband and I. Now, our teenagers are older. Okay. They're 19 and 17. So, well, they were, when COVID hit, they were almost 19 and 17. So we had a very, very vulnerable sit down with them. And we told them, look, this is the deal. This is what we have. If nothing else changed, if we never got another job, this is how long we could last. This is what, like, we were pretty straight up front with them
Yeah.
and said, look, if we all need to go get jobs, then, and put our shekels on the table, decide how we're going to pay the bills and buy food, then that's what we're going to do. We were very, very upfront with them. Now, I know that not every age group that's appropriate. I understand. But to
Right.
your point about the lights and the water and stuff, I do think it is fair to say to kids, look, here's a bit of, without putting them in a place of fear, but really being honest, look, I'm not working as many hours, or et cetera. And so some of the things that we used to do, we're just not going to do right now. We're just going to have to be a little more careful about things like water and leaving lights on and stuff like that. But here's what I'm hearing from teenagers this is leading to. Let's say you worked out of the house even 5 days a week before, okay? Let alone like your husband, who is extremely long hours and just takes a great deal of commitment in that particular career. Now you're home more. And these teenagers are like, will you get out of my face?
Yeah.
P.S. Mom or dad, this is how I've always been. This is what I've always been doing. You're just seeing it now and you're all up in my face. Like, get out of my face. And so it's funny,
Yeah.
but it's not funny, because parents, again, totally to your point, if there's financial stress or even relational stress and all this other stuff going on, and parents are home now and they're like, you can't sit and do that, or get off of this, or you should be doing this, because of extra stress. When your teenager is like, dude, this is how I've always been doing it. Get off my back.
Yeah.
And so it's about taking that breath back and going, okay, maybe this has always been going on. Maybe I just wasn't seeing it before. And yes, I'm stressed. So how can I communicate that to my teenager in a way that's like, okay, so I didn't realize this is how you were all the time. Yes, I'm seeing it more, and more things bug me right now. How can we either negotiate it to be different, or how can help me to find a way that I can be okay with you being on your video game? And because I'm not okay with it, and maybe it's just because I didn't see it, or maybe it's just because I'm stressed out right now. But it's funny that teenagers saying like, hello, just because you're home all the time now doesn't mean you get to be barking at me all day.
And that's what it feels like to them, right?
That is what it feels like to them. And in their world, they're saying, dude, I've been doing this the whole time, and now you got a problem with it?
Yeah.
Not
And
my problem.
you know what's interesting about that is teenagers tend, not always, but I don't want to categorize everybody with one personality type here, but the teenage group tend to have the biggest issues with being judged,
Yes.
right? It's just a time in our life when we go down the street, and if our parents do something or try to hold our hand, we're like, people are watching, or like, you're always worried about how you look to everybody around you, and you think everybody is only worried about how you look, which we now know is not the case. But in that time of our lives, we think that. So when you're always worried about people judging you, and then all of a sudden these people that you love are telling you, you did this again, and I asked you not to do it, and why are you doing this, and why are you doing that? They're just like, wow, I must be really hard to deal with. I must be a piece of shit, right? Like, it's how they feel, in the sense of, we're just stressed out and trying to get our point across. Like, I keep telling you, turn the freaking lights off. This isn't hard. Like, why can't we just do that? But to them, it's like, you think I'm dumb, or you think like I'm causing them stress, and we don't have money because of me, or, like, they take it there.
They do. They definitely personalize it. And this is such a good point. This is what's hard. It's harder for parents to understand this. Teenagers get entirely new brains. Entirely new brains. Their pituitary gland exploded in their brain, and their brain is developing wildly complex emotional pathways, thought process. They are actually learning an entirely new identity. And that's why when I am stressed and I come at my teenager through a voice of criticism, the criticism in itself, it can be toxic, but it can also just be a little bit of a, hey, come on. But it is taken so critically because their brains are literally forming a new sense of identity as a teenager. And so when they're on the receiving end of a high level of critical messaging, it is so internalized as a part of their identity that, again, as parents, I understand their stress levels right now. I would just caution that we need to take a breath. And definitely, if we want the lights turned out, make the request, but make the request in a way that doesn't come across as shaming, which is they
Right.
are a mistake or they are bad, as opposed to I don't like when the lights are left on. That's
Mhm.
separate
Or
from
they're
their
stupid, like saying
or they're
stuff like, why
stupid.
can't you remember to turn the light, right? They take that as,
Well, that's toxic. Yeah. Comparison, comparing them to a sibling. Why can't you just be, is a toxic and inflammatory form of communication that they do internalize in their brains. Because with this new brain they're getting, not only are they absorbing everything they're hearing, and mostly from parents, as part of their identity, but like you said, when they walk down the street, etc. Anonymity, so being separate from, as a teenager, is social suicide. Being different as a teen is social suicide. So here they are trying to develop their own identity, and yet anonymity is dangerous. And so they're in this weird space of, how do I figure out who I am and be different and be myself? And being myself and being different, it means nobody might like me. And so
yeah.
as parents, it's why it's even more critical for us to be reinforcing, still asking for what we need and having boundaries. I'm all about boundaries, but asking, a, an actual boundary comes from a place of compassion and respect, not from a place of anger and critical or comparison, which is toxic, because our teenagers are truly absorbing everything that we're giving to them from that place of identity. And they're, I know it sounds silly because they're not the 2 and 3 and 4 year old that used to hang onto our leg and want to know that they were so loved, because teenagers have this mask of sort of off-putting behavior and eye rolling and arm crossing. And, I'm just going to say right now, parents listening, don't be fooled by that. That is their very thinly veiled safety mechanism, but inside they're still wanting to grab onto your leg. They just want to know, I'm okay. Do you love me? I'm okay. Do you want to spend time with me? And to
Are you
be,
proud of me?
are you proud of me? And that when you ask to spend time with them, that you are doing it from a place of being truly curious about who they're becoming, not from a place of being critical about what you see or what you hear.
Right. And that's an important point of taking the time to see who they are becoming. What do they want to be? And sometimes that's so different than what we want as parents. That can
Yes.
be a totally different picture for them than it is for us, which can be disappointing internally if it's like, man, I really wanted them to continue this goal of going to this college and doing this career. And all of a sudden, after 7 years of focusing on that, they don't care anymore and they want to do something different. That's okay. If that's their journey, it's getting to understand, why are they making those choices? Why are they so interested in it? And then showing an interest in return, right? Because even if it's something we're not interested in, that's our family and we care about them and we love them. And they need to know that we're here for them and that we're interested in learning about what they love
Right.
instead of
Right.
controlling what we think they should love. And that's a hard time to do that when your kids are, hey, mom and dad, I need help paying for college. And by the way, I've changed my mind about what my major is going to be. Or in my circumstances, like, hey, mom, I'm a senior. And by the way, now I'm going to be a mom. Right. Like,
Right.
that's definitely not what I envisioned for her future. And that's okay. That's okay. You just, I have to make a choice. Am I going to say, okay, well, if that's what you're going to choose to do, and this is our life now, then I will set boundaries and support you
Hmm.
within those boundaries. Or I can say, wow, you're such a disappointment. I'm so ashamed of you. And, I can do that to her. But then is she going to be the best mother she can be? Is she going to still be able to graduate and go to college? No, because I just broke her down when she was already broken.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right. I love what you're saying here, because this is, I think, something that trips a lot of parents up, and not because parents are not smart. It's like we get lulled into this sense of, I know who my child is. I've put in all this work, and about, I'm just going to say 10 as an average, 10 years old, they are who they are, and aren't they this wonderful, friendly, compliant child, and they're so great. And then kaboom, I have no
Kaboom.
idea who this person is, and I'm trying my very best and I can't reach them. And I'm telling you, it's not because you're a bad parent. Please hear that. This has nothing to
Right.
do with being a bad parent. This has to do with the fact they're getting a new brain.
Yeah.
And I hear so often that parents are stuck in an unconscious grieving process about who their child was, that they are projecting disappointment and criticism on who their teenager is becoming.
Yeah.
And that as a parent, when we can just accept and get real honest that the child we love and know at 10 is not the person that we may spend the next 6 to 8 years with. They might come back around. I don't know. But in the teenage years, they are a different person. And instead of making them wrong for that, being in a preparation and allow yourself to grieve that amazing child you knew, so that you
Absolutely.
can be present to who they're becoming without the critical judgment. And in this pandemic, they may become an even different person. And to know that who they are today, because their brain is literally forming so fast, so changing so fast, who they are now is not who they might be in 3 years. This pandemic is showing you parts of your teenager that might feel very sad and might feel very disappointing. Please know that's not who they might be for the rest of their lives.
Right.
So that if the, like you said, if they pursued something for 7 years, a sport, a career, a passion, a something, and now they're making a shift, it's okay. It's not about you. And they might come back around to it. Maybe they're stepping back because they've had to, say pandemic. Maybe they're stepping back because their brain is changing and it's developing all new interests and insights to go with that. I just did a TikTok on this and I find it sad and fascinating, the irony between parents and teenagers. That in the teen stage where parents are not sure who this child is and they love and desperately want to connect with them but don't know how, the one thing that parents do is question their ability as a parent. They feel like they're failing their kids, and it literally keeps them awake at night. Their desperate want to connect with them.
That
And
parent
yet,
guilt,
yeah,
right?
the
That
parent guilt,
parenting guilt that we all have,
100%.
all of us.
And the thousands of teenagers who message me and feel like their greatest fear is disappointing their parent, that all they want is to feel loved and accepted, and it also keeps them awake at night. So we have this irony of parents who just want to know they're doing okay and feel loved and accepted for everything they're trying. And we have these teenagers who just want to feel loved and accepted and know they're not a big disappointment. And I'm like, well, isn't this ironic?
Yeah. That's like a middle school crush when you like somebody and they like you too, but your best friend knows that you both like each other, but you don't want to tell each other because you're too
Yeah,
scared, you know?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
that kind of situation, right?
it
It's
is.
I am proud of you and I do love you and I think you're a great kid and I do love you and I am proud of you and I think you're a great parent. But we're just so stubborn, I think, and we're so worried about our side of things that we're not taking a minute to think about their side of it,
Yes.
which is so important, especially during a pandemic, because we're dealing with all this adult stuff, like we said earlier. And we forget, a lot of us forget what it was like when we were teenagers. And I don't really care who you are or how you were brought up. The one thing that all teenagers do have in common is this sense of trying to figure out who you are
Mm-hmm.
and worrying about other people's judgment. And
Yes.
every moment feels like your entire life,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
so even though their stresses seem so minimal to our stresses, because we're like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry you can't see your friends or walk at graduation because I don't even remember what my graduation walk was like and who really cares because it's the world to them, right? You
It
know, like
is.
it's their everything. Or like we might not have a prom, right? And then for us, it's like, okay, well, I did have a prom. It was fun. But would my life have been worse if I didn't have it? No, probably not. And we can evaluate that, but they're not there yet. And we can't expect them to get there. They won't for years and
Right.
years, right?
Right.
So it's just important to, even with a spouse, even with a small child, right? Because I have a 6-year-old, almost 10-year-old, and a 17-year-old, right? That's a mother. So like I've got them all over. And it's so important with each of them and my husband to try to just take a minute and pause and say, how are they processing what's going on? Right? How is everything to them? And having those conversations and having that communication, because some of them don't feel safe to tell you how they're really feeling, right? And so why is
Mhm.
that? Is it because we are closed off because we are so stressed out that we're devaluing how they feel because our problem seems so much bigger?
Yes. Oh, that's a good one. That is such a good point. Like I'm here trying to pay the bills, put food on the table, and worry about a job. And you're going to get your knickers in a knot because you can't have your sports or grad. Oh my gosh. Well, you won't remember of it that you won't remember that much of it anyway. I mean, you're right. And this is the point, is that we have all of these years of context built on top of being 15, 16, 17, 18. We have all of that context. They don't. And you're right. Every social interaction they have with their friends feels like the one that's going to define them. All of these milestones that they have grown up looking forward to because they're part of our culture, at least North American culture, they're part of our North American culture. You're now telling them they don't get that. That they've grown up looking forward to these key milestones that now we are telling them, oh yeah, PS, you can't have that. Oh, in a
Yeah.
social life, you can't have that either. I mean, it's like a rite of passage is the teenager years and the social interactions that happen in there. So finding that empathy, as you're saying, finding that empathy, number one, for ourselves, finding that compassion and that empathy for ourselves so that we can put ourselves in their situation a little bit and go, well, hang on a second. If I were 18 and I was told I couldn't have a graduation at 18, how would I feel?
Yeah. Or a
At
senior trip
a
or
senior trip or
whatever it is, right?
the junior, yeah, the like all the sports, the homecoming, the all of this stuff.
Or the little kids, like bringing cupcakes to class on your birthday, or, like all, I mean,
Right,
pretty much everybody at this point has had a COVID birthday, right?
right.
And so you look at like even little things like that, like my 6-year-old and 9-year-old trying to figure out, what does a birthday look like for you now, right? How do
Right.
we still make it fun? And like, they're still disappointed. You can do things to make up for it, but it's not going to be the same to them. They're still sad about it.
Right. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that we can do from a mental health perspective through this time is to get super familiar, like familiar in a way you never wanted to, with grief.
Absolutely. This is
Get
absolutely a time of grief.
get familiar with grief and what grief looks like for you, not what it looks like for anybody else, but familiar with what grief looks like for you, because this is like this weird prolonged stage of grief because we don't know exactly when this will end. We
Mhm.
have historic data that says, I don't know, maybe 2 years, maybe like if you go back to the Spanish flu, but we don't actually know. And that unknown, in the brain, it increases the level of anxiety, which teen anxiety is already skyrocketing. So you add the anxiety of not knowing when it's going to end. And when we can be really honest with ourselves about what grieving looks like, which PS includes anger, it includes a lot of sadness, and in a teenage brain, risky behavior taking, which they're wired for. Well, let's go do stuff anyway, or whatever that looks like. When you can be honest with your teenager about what you are grieving, right now for us, it might be Christmas dinner. I don't know, we're on lockdown and not supposed to be outside of our homes. So Christmas dinner, Christmas traditions, all of these traditions that even the nuanced tiny ones that are almost unspoken and implicit that are no longer there build in a sense of grief. And we need to be really honest with ourselves and express that grief with our teenagers, not to put it on them, but to make it okay and invite them to grieve with you as well.
Yeah. And
Not
that it's okay. Yeah.
because,
That it's safe.
not, yes, because it's safe, not because you can fix them, and please don't try, not because you're going to rescue them, but because you are a safe place for them to come and just, pardon the expression, but just lose their shit,
Yeah.
because not because they're angry at you or whatever, because they're devastated that their life seems to just have gone on hold and there's nothing they can do about it. And that sense of powerlessness needs to be acknowledged, because if we don't, the other side, the other side of the plywood of powerlessness is rage.
Yeah. And it's such a quick flip.
Oh yeah.
Right. And
Heck
for
yeah.
all of us, I mean, you don't have to be a teenager. It's the small kids as well, right? They go from
Yes.
feeling emotional or tired to super angry super fast. And I do too. I definitely have that issue when I'm feeling burnt out and I'm dealing with my own stuff and then I'm trying to deal with everybody else's stuff. And then all of a sudden, I'm just mad at everybody. And then I have to take a minute and go, why am I angry at everybody right now? Like, if it's
Yes.
more than two people that are causing me a regular amount of anger in the moment, I may need to evaluate why I'm taking on everything so personally and getting angry so easily.
Right.
Right.
Yes. That's good too. Like tweens, I find I'm getting messages about tweens and teens. Why are they just so angry? They're just so angry. They're so pissy. And so the natural reaction with anger as a parent is to come up against anger,
Yeah.
when really that is an inflammatory response, although normal. I understand why that would be.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, your teenager may just be more angry right now because they're in a phase of grief and they don't know it. So the more you make it okay, not that they're allowed to take it out on you or any parts of your home or
Right. Right.
property, there's boundaries around that. But the more that you make them being angry about the way it is now okay, not because you're fixing it or rescuing them to make it okay, the more actually the more likely it is that they will release that anger, as opposed to when you come up against it and then you're in a fight.